Thanks everyone for joining our monthly webinar with my favorite mortgage broker, Jordan Thomson.
Mm.
People know her as the Mortgage Queen. She is my personal mortgage broker who deals with my personal mortgages, and I recommend her to almost all of my clients as the go-to person who will walk with my clients hand in hand and help them come up with a mortgage solution that works for them. So without further ado, Jordan Thomson, what are we going to be talking about today?
Gary, thank you so much. I'm blushing over here. I really am. Well, like Hassan was saying, what's on everybody's mind, and certainly what's on our minds too. What's going on with the interest rates? These interest rate hikes. How are they affecting borrowers? How are they affecting the real estate market? What are we doing looking ahead? And then we recently had the federal budget. It's great to know we're going to be talking about that first. Yeah, it's got that weird, we'll call it the FHSA, which is the first time home saving account. I'm going to touch a little bit on that because I think, will there be an impact to the real estate market moving forward based on what's on the budget? But let's start with, hey, what the heck's going on with interest rates? I mean, every time I tell people what the rates are right now, they're like, what? Really? That can't be right. We've just come out of the pandemic where we saw just bargain, bottom of the barrel rates that we hadn't seen for so long. And they were a massive, massive deal. And so we saw everybody scooping up houses and everybody moving, away. And now all of a sudden we've gone from, hey, a 1.69% fixed rate, 5-year fixed rate, free money, let's call it what it is, free money. And now I'm having to quote something like, oh, it's like, 4.59, 4.79. Oh, hey, 4.99. And people are like, excuse me, that's what the heck's just gone on. Like just 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I was just looking at, in the twos. So we have definitely seen a massive run up on both fixed and variable rates. So really the reason, we've got a couple of reasons. But, like I said, the fixed rates are now, I mean, you're looking at kind of a base rate in the mid 4s. So that's for the lowest priced mortgages. With the variable rates, same thing. What's happening is the discount to prime, which is what the variable rate is. So it's, prime minus or plus something. That discount is shrinking. We had very large discounts during the pandemic, and now those are shrinking. And then, of course, we have prime rate, which is scaring people dramatically. The Bank of Canada is increasing that prime rate. It's doing it fast, it's doing it aggressively, and people are watching, their variable rate mortgage go up and up and up, which means those payments, their mortgage payments for the most part are going up. And we're wondering how high are they going to go? And truth be told, we don't really know. But here's why the rates are going up. So we've got a lot, going on, there's no doubt. Fixed rates are based on the bond yields. It's very forward looking. So it's really a reflection of, inflation. That's the big one. It's all around us, and the war in Ukraine. And then it's also a reflection of its pricing in those upcoming Bank of Canada interest rate hikes. So fixed rates typically rise before the variable rate rises. So it already knows that, it's based on the bond and the market. The investors are already saying, hey, we know the Bank of Canada is going to be raising that prime rate, like I said, aggressively. So we're just going to get ahead of the curve because it's very forward thinking. The variable rate, which is based on the Bank of Canada prime rate, is going up because we're coming out of the pandemic, and this is the tool that the Bank of Canada uses to combat inflation. And of course, we are seeing massive inflation right now. So the Bank of Canada uses interest rates to either stimulate or cool down the economy. So they're trying to curb inflation, bring it back down, and reduce demand as well, which will soften, dampen like prices of the real estate market, and put downward pressure on that inflation. So that's why we're seeing those interest rate hikes for sure. I mean, you just have to fill up your car. You just have to try and buy a home to know that we need some downward pressure for sure, you know, to bring prices down and to try to beat the inflation.
The question I'm always getting regarding my clients is like, okay, the rates are rising. How's it affecting the mortgage industry, and how's it affecting the market? I tell them briefly about how's it affecting the real estate market, in the sense that there's some people like sitting on the sideline, but in terms of their qualification and their ability to qualify for financing, how have you seen that? How have you seen the rates affect that part?
Well, if you remember, we have the stress test. The stress test is the higher of the contract rate, which is basically, you know, what mortgage rate you're getting. Sorry, it's the higher of the benchmark rate, which currently is 5.25%, or the contract rate plus 2%. So if the contract rate is 4.5%, I have to use the stress test of 6.5%. We've just come out of 2 years plus of using a qualifying rate of 5.25%. So as the fixed rates have gone up, if you're choosing a fixed rate because you want to set it and forget it and know what that monthly payment is and not worry about the variable rate payments and so forth, you're having to qualify at a higher stress tested rate. And what that means is you get less mortgage. So had you come to me in January, for example, and we had done a mortgage qualification, I might say you qualify for $500,000. Well, now if you want a fixed rate, you don't qualify for $500,000. You're going to qualify for less. So maybe it's only $480,000 or $475,000. But what you thought you qualified for and what you'd done your home shopping on might not be the case anymore. And so it was hard enough to get people into the market to start with. Now they're saying, what, I get even less of a mortgage? Couple that with the fact of that increased rate, and when you tell them the monthly payment, people are just out and out saying, I can't make that work. That's, I can't afford that. So we're really seeing people struggle with the affordability of mortgage payments with the rates that they are.
Are you seeing people not getting financing? More and more of that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not me personally. But we definitely have to be a little bit more creative because people are still pushing up to the top of their budget.
Yep.
So if people want more money, I have to say, okay, you must take the variable rate, which has a lower qualifying stress test rate, and you need a 30-year amortization. So you need to have 20% down. So, more things need to be in play to get me to be able to increase their mortgage qualification where they want to be. But some people don't want to take their chances with the variable rate mortgage right now.
But historically, it has been better over the last 20, 30 years.
Right. And now we're in this kind of time where it's really hard to tell. Nobody really knows how much the Bank of Canada is going to raise prime rate, but there is certainly lots of talk that the variable rate will hit what the current fixed rates are at and maybe even surpass them. And that's kind of the scary bit. We just don't know, or that's what's scary to borrowers. They just don't know. So, they're wondering, should I take my chance on the variable? So they look to the fixed, and then they sometimes are just saying, hey, I'm out. I just can't qualify for that. Or we have to lower their expectation. So that's kind of what's happening on the borrower side.
I think
Um,
consumers were kind of you got used to the 1 to 2% interest rate, and like, but then people who actually looked at it from bird's eye view knew that it was unsustainable long term. It wasn't going to stay at
Absolutely.
1 to 2% for the next 20 years. So we
Right.
knew it was for the purpose of, to stimulate the economy, to increase GDP, increase spending. That's what the interest rates were. But then it also you can't have like you can't have low interest rates forever, because inflation, skyrockets, and then you gotta,
Right.
right?
Well, that's right. Yeah. And the Bank of Canada was too late in raising those interest rates. So
Yeah.
now they're having to hurry and play catch up.
Yeah.
And is that going to drive us into a recession? It's certainly possible.
Possible, but
So
they will probably mitigate it, like do their best to mitigate it and prevent that from happening. But
right.
what I'm hearing from clients is January, February was just too crazy. Now it seems to be slowing down, but not so slow that nobody's buying. It's just normal, like quote unquote normal,
Yeah.
like balanced.
Well, that's it.
But
Yeah.
it
I
just,
think
yeah, people look at last year. Oh, the market is like 10% slower than last year or something like that. But last year was kind of crazy when,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely still seeing in the condo market, here in the lower mainland, multiple offers,
Yeah.
over asking. So it's still there.
Yeah.
Definitely seeing less in the detached
Yeah.
market, though.
Yeah.
A lot of homes that are sitting on the market for a lot longer,
Mhm.
and and you can kind of talk more to this. People who are wanting to list as really high,
That's right.
kind of like it is January or February,
Yeah.
and finding it's just not going to sell at that price anymore,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
People are like, sorry, I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
I can't offer that anymore.
That's right.
I just can't
Right.
afford the payment. So how are you finding that?
I'm finding that that's the case. And then like, I think people got used to the low rates. They also got used to, like, I think the shock is because their comfort zone was the low rates, and they thought that was the norm, but they didn't
Oh yeah.
foresee that. Well, they probably foresaw but didn't feel it. And so when the rates rised, all of a sudden, they're freaking out, right? And then the sellers who are expecting to sell at inflated prices, well,
Mhm.
now it's selling at normal prices, or quote unquote normal. And
Right.
but they're like, no, it's worth X plus Y, but that's what it sold in January, February at inflated rates. So that
Right.
was a situation there.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
the,
I
Mhm.
I think the condo market is not going to see as much of a slowdown.
Yeah.
So I think there will still be buyers in that segment, and I'm definitely seeing that now. Right. Uh,
Mhm.
let's talk again. We have our next meeting on June 9th.
Yeah.
We have another interest rate hike coming up on
Yeah.
June 1st. So
Do you have a personal prediction of where you think the market's going? Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know for sure,
what
but
the
you have a guess
where the market's going,
for
or
like interest
the
rate.
interest rate. I definitely think we're going to have a 50 basis points hike on June 1.
Wow. Hmm.
I've heard a little bit of words about a 75 basis points, but I would say 95% of people in industry and economists, so it's going to be 50 basis points.
In June
Um,
1st, right?
June 1st. So like that's what
5 days later.
I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie. My phone is going to be ringing off the hook. Now, what do I do? Is what people are going to say now. And the question always, should I lock in? Well, no, not yet. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, that's a great question. Should I lock in? Well, if your interest rate, let's say you have prime minus 1%, that's a pretty common, interest rate to get. So even if prime goes to 3.7 on June 1, you're still paying 2.7%.
Yeah.
So why would you lock into 4.7?
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
That's right.
So the answer is no. No, it's not. Or don't lock in, right? Because we think we're coming to the peak of those fixed rates.
So your
And I think,
advice for people who currently have a rate hold, they have 5 days to pull the trigger?
I'm seeing, rate holds are running out where the rates are pretty low. So you've got maybe a month,
Okay, okay.
maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're getting rate hike increases weekly.
Yeah.
So, if you didn't get something kind of, back in March, you're going to be paying a higher rate.
So just because Bank of Canada isn't raising rates doesn't mean the banks aren't raising rates.
Oh my goodness. The banks every week, they all just raise rates. Just got another one, yet again, another one of the big banks. You heard it here first. Another one. They're raising rates again. They're already at the highest as it is.
Yeah.
Or, and it's just like, you're coming out with yet another
Yeah.
rate hike. So I don't know if it's going to be fixed or just the discount to prime. But my prediction, I think we're going to see probably another, in total, at least 100 basis points added to the prime rate. So maybe about a 4.2% rate.
Mhm.
I think fixed rates are going to kind of start topping out.
Yeah.
But we do believe that they are going to come down again in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, maybe if you are buying now, don't lock into that longer term 5-year fixed rate. Look at a 2 or a 3 year,
Yeah.
and then see where the rates are again at that time.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they've come down, then you can take a lower, shorter term again, or you can switch to the variable when it's come down, right? So you don't necessarily have to lock into that 5-year fixed. So I think maybe having some of that information and looking at your personal situation, and that might be a good option. So definitely talk to your mortgage broker about that.